Welcome to the inaugural podcast of the Burning Branches. We're a group of guys who get together in fellowship every week, and we just discuss the things that challenge us as we grow in the Lord, and some of the things that we're facing. To get things started, my name is David, and I'm just really excited to be here around all these really anointed men. To my right, we have
Scott, and I'm glad to be here.
And to Scott's right, we have
Darius, and I'm glad to be here as well, and I'm grateful for having you listen.
And to Darius's right, we have
Christian. I'm hoping I can contribute something helpful and useful to this conversation.
Amen. And to Christian's right,
All right. To cap it off, this is Kenneth. I'm super elated to be here and to hear you guys' stories. This is an exciting day.
Awesome. All right. Well, today we're going to get started with this topic and what it means to have a lifestyle of ministry. And so we kind of want to challenge our listeners as they're listening into this to kind of follow along with us. And we invite you always to leave some comments below as it comes to you, to be a part of the conversation. So don't hesitate to, of course, like the podcast and subscribe to it, but throw your thoughts in too so that we can chew on them. So let's get started with Kenny. Like, what do you think it means to have a lifestyle of ministry? What does that mean to you?
I think that's kind of like a huge topic. There's a lot of branches to like the growth of a Christian or growth of a life that's in ministry. But to speak from a personal perspective or from a personal point, I'll say a life of ministry is basically just watching how God walked the earth in Jesus Christ and watching how he lived his life in that regard. And I think he's the biggest example to a walk of life in ministry. Like he basically he lived the word, he breathed the word, he ate the word. And so if we as Christians, if we're looking for a life in ministry, he's the one that we all need to be looking at and looking to. And I'm glad to be a part of a church that encourages a relationship with God. Like my pastor, he really encourages a relationship with God. He's not a fan of religion because religion doesn't help you grow. I know he says this a lot. He says religion doesn't stay with you when you leave the build. Religion doesn't stay with you, where religion stays with you in the building, but then relationship leaves with you out of the building. Like you're walking out with God. You don't just leave God in the building when you leave. You're walking out with him. He's laying next to you. He's sitting next to you in the car.
Right.
So when it comes to like a lifestyle in ministry, I would say one thing that's challenged me in that regard is like when I go to work sometimes, I used to just go into work and just walk right in, clock in, and just go by my job, talk the way everyone talks at work.
Yeah.
But now it's not the same anymore. Like I walk into work sometimes, I'm praying before I walked into work. Sometimes during my 20-minute drive to work, I'm praying, I'm singing, I'm praising God, and I'm saying hallelujah. So like walking into work, I'm a little consecrated, so I'm not just blending into the culture of the job, but I walk in with my own culture. I walk in with my own lifestyle. But that's one thing that I'll say that that's life in ministry. That's one thing that I can attest to from my personal perspective.
Wow. Okay. So let me pose this question. So the word ministry, a lot of people, they look at that and it's like ministry means, ministry means a pastor. Ministry means somebody serving in the church, right? But if you look at what the word actually means, it means to serve somebody. So it's interesting that you brought that up about going into your culture of work because, tell everybody what you do right now while you're going to school. And hey, don't take them the wrong way. My boy is about to be like operating on you on that surgeon table or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
But right now, what do you do to make your bread?
Well, to make my bread, I'm a server, and I know that as the podcast goes on, I'm going to share a lot of stories about like experiences that I've had as a server, and sometimes it's not fun, sometimes it's fun, and so like you have to have basically the spirit to serve others because sometimes you get the hardest table, sometimes you get the neediest table, sometimes you get the table that is so hard for you to even to make them happy. Like whatever you do will not make them happy. And there's a whole lot of learning curve that had to come with that because my initial stages of serving, moving from like restaurant management, school schedule was so tough. So now I have to do serving because it allowed me to have the hours that I need so I can go to school as well. But I had to learn that you can't always make people happy. Right. You can't always it's not up to you to make them happy. Like, even though I had a heart of servitude when it comes to that specific job, I still couldn't make everyone happy in that regard. But yeah, David, that's what I do to make the bread. You're right.
Yeah. So the point that I was trying to make, that I wanted to kind of allude to, is that you're consecrating yourself so you can go serve people.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so, to me, when I first learned about your story, I was really challenged. And it's like, man, I need to consecrate myself to serve people too, whether or not I'm at work or not. And it's like that mindset right there.
That's right.
To me, I see that, and it's like, wow, that's a lifestyle of ministry. It's just like, let me talk to God, and then let me go serve people.
Absolutely.
Whether you're making money at it or not, regardless, that's what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like you just come to serve, and whatever is given to you is just a plus. It's just a additional thing to what you're already doing. So it's like, wow, like this person gave me $100, or this person gave me, and you're able to just receive blessings by you being a blessing. Wow.
That's really cool. It's interesting. That's what it says in the book of Matthew in the Bible, where it says, man, do all these things, but seek first the kingdom of God, but then all of these things will be added unto you. So it's like you're literally just rewording the Bible as you're speaking that right now. You didn't even know it. That's the word flowing from you, bro.
Yeah, man. It's in me.
Yeah.
It's in you. That's for
the
sure.
Holy Spirit, man.
That's for sure. But I remember, like, even I think on Monday when I went into work, like, I'm serving this table, super nice table, and at the end of their dining experience, I bring them a to-go cup of like a flavored tea. They had a strawberry flavored tea, so I bring them a to-go cup of the tea. And then the guy was just so grateful for me doing that. And I didn't do that to get them to tip me or anything like that.
Right.
For just that very specific action that I took, this guy whips out and write a $200 tip.
Yeah,
Wow.
man.
Dude, $200. I'm like,
That's a
dude,
lot.
I'm like, I know sometimes I think God just oozes favor and grace over me, that when I go to the table, they're like, just give this guy the money.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it feels like to me. I'm like, I didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just to segue from what Darius is saying, it's like, I'm not serving you because I want something out of you.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm serving you because that's what I want to do.
Right.
That's what I have to do.
It's in your heart.
It's in my heart, exactly. So yeah, it's just crazy though. It really is crazy.
Hey, it's the little things, man.
It sure is. It sure is the little things.
Yeah, for sure. I actually want to hear, talking about a servant's heart, I want to hear from my boy Scott here for a minute. And just share something with us about how God has changed you to serve others in your capacity, and what that's been like for you, like a change.
Well, naturally, I'm just an anxious person, right? When I'm at work and when I'm helping customers, I work at Lowe's, and when I'm helping customers, I just get this peace, and I get the anxiety goes away, and and I get this joy and this, I just feel so fulfilled from helping. It's just from God. There's no other way to explain it, but it's from God. And I see God working through me, and it's just something special,
That I think that's the trick, right? Is that you're doing it just simply for the joy of serving, and that's the thing that God honors. You know what I mean? And so it's like God sees that, and as He's pouring out His love through you, that's where ministry takes place.
That's right.
It doesn't take a specific altar or a specific building or a specific title or a collar. It's like, man, you're just going to share His love. Like whether you're at your job, whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter. As long as you're approaching it with love, you're going to see so much poured out from that. You're going to see like lives change in just a little way, but you're making waves. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I think one thing that a lot of people miss is sort of what you mentioned earlier, how people see ministry as being a pastor or being an usher or being a greeter, when ministry is oftentimes right in front of us. And I was reminded of a story. When I was in college, I didn't have a car for a few semesters. And so I was getting rides by, just a few people at the church. And I remember I was getting one ride, and it was a snowy day, and a few people were having trouble trying to get out of their driveways. And I remember driving past, and the usher who was driving me, or whoever was driving me, it was like he felt like, he wanted to stop and help that person that was kind of stuck on the side of the road. But he just kind of thought out loud to himself, like, sorry, but I gotta get to church. And I didn't want to say anything. I'm just a guy getting the ride. I'm just like, isn't that kind of the point? Like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? It's like, we're on our way to church. Like, wouldn't Christ want us to, like, stop on the side of the road and help that person if we have the ability to?
Yeah.
So oftentimes it's like ministry isn't this this big pie in the sky thing that we think we need to dedicate a third of our lives to and just study and pray and fast. Oftentimes, like sometimes it is that, but oftentimes it's just, no, help the person who needs some water or bring them some tea. Or you see someone who's having a bad day. Oh, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. I'll help you out.
Right.
That's so good. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like, it's not something you got to like, pray and fast or have a position to. It's like sometimes, yeah, but it's like it's in those moments. And I was reminded by the the Good Samaritan parable that, and everybody knows that parable.
Right.
And it's like, but it's so important because it's like, who was the Samaritan? Well, he was the guy who stopped to help.
That's right.
That's who he was. It's and not a specific person. It's somebody
That's
who took
it.
the time out. And he's like, no, I'll put it on my account. Like, let me put him on my account, feed him, clothe him, make sure he has a place to sleep. I'll be back for him later. That's it. That's literally it. And I think
that's so true, David. I can attest to that. I think ministry is something that you do daily. Because sometimes my mom comes to visit me, at my apartment. And I make it a point that when I wake up to go to school, I put my backpack, I'll knock her in her room, and I'll basically just lay hands on her and I'll pray for her. Like, and that's ministry in that sense. I'm not just going out of the house because I got to get to school,
Right.
And I remember one day I was speaking to this young lady, and I don't want to mention her name or anything like that, but 2 years later, this lady that I spoke to, I took at least 8 minutes to speak to her, to speak life into her. 2 years later, she reached out to me, and it's like, Kenneth, do you remember a moment where you spoke to me at a specific time? I'm like, yeah, I remember. Like, if you hadn't spoke to me, or if you hadn't taken the time to talk to me that day, I had planned in my mind that I was going to take my own life.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that's ministry. Like, there's so many opportunities for us to have ministry that we don't look for. We don't look for it. Like, we walk into Joel Osco, we walk into Lowe's, we walk into Chick-fil-A, and we're walking past people all the time.
Yeah.
Our compass is not looking for those things, and so we don't see moments of ministry that we can minister into people's life. And so now I have it in my compass, the compass of my mind. I'm looking for moments of ministry. If someone needs you to open the door for them, that's ministry.
Yeah.
Because I remember one day, like, this lady had like bags of groceries. She's walking into her apartment. I stopped whatever I'm doing. I went up there. I held the bags. I'm like, hey, can I help you with that? She's like, no. I'm like, well, I insist, ma'am. And she allowed me to do it. And I think that's ministry. It speaks to them. Like, I didn't have to do it, but I did it. So if you really consider what ministry is, I think it's our daily actions, our daily words, our daily ways of portraying who we are. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, there's so many stories I think everyone can attest to in that regard.
And I just want to piggy off what you just said. I think oftentimes, like, we have, like, high points and low points in our Christian walk, and like we hear something like that, and it's like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to be that light in a dark place. I want to be able to go into Jules or into Lowe's and minister to somebody. But what we have to realize is that our ministry doesn't start there. It's like, when we go into these places, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about all the things we need to do. We're thinking about all the things we're late for, all the things that we need to get to. We're thinking about tomorrow and every day after that.
Right.
That's why we need to pray. Like, when we get up in the morning, we need to start our day, consecrate our day. We're like, no, Lord, your will be done. Because that's where it starts. You can't just expect to wake up, be busy with your entire morning, forgetting a bunch of things, not being responsible in the areas that we need to be.
Wow.
And then we go into the grocery store and it's like, all right, Lord, help me to minister to somebody. Like, no, it starts at the beginning of the day.
Wow.
It starts with how you order your day,
Setting
how you
the
order
tone.
your steps, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to determine how you're able to receive from the Lord. Now you're able to minister to someone. So,
Yeah.
The Bible talks
thank
about,
you for that.
casting your cares on the Lord.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of cares in this life. You know what I'm saying?
That's the
We
heat,
got a lot of
Darius.
Hey, so when you wake up, you just like, all right, God,
I cast it all onto
yeah,
you.
I give it to you.
Wow.
You have liberty to flow through me, and the stuff that I need to take care of, you help me in the areas that I need help in,
Wow.
and He will use you. He will honor that, and He will bless you.
Wow.
That's good.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was just thinking about that verse where it says, cast your cares onto the Lord, right? But then also, I just realized in that parable, right, where he's talking about the seed going on different ground.
Yes.
And you remember the part where the weeds grow up?
Right.
And he says, it choked out the life. Those are the cares of the world.
Yeah.
That's why we got to
Wow.
cast them on, and we got to pull them
Yeah.
up like weeds and cast
And
them on the
cast 'em
Lord.
I think they're called the tares.
The tares. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
He says, those are the cares of the world.
I love
And it's
it.
like people who let that grow around what God has for them, they don't get to grow.
Right.
And so I think you hit on it right there.
And then, like, when it's time to when it's harvest time for you to go get the fruit, you have weeds and you can't really get what God has for you.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but like, I think Christian had said something a while back that it stuck with me. It's like, or maybe it was Christian, but trees don't produce fruit for themselves. They produce fruit for other things to eat and consume, right? And so what's our fruit supposed to do? What's our ministry supposed to do?
Reproduce,
or help somebody else, give somebody else the nutrients.
Yes.
And so when you look at a situation like that, you got to think, okay, well, am I being selfish right now? Why? Is there something that needs to be taken care of? Let me give that to God real quick. And then you can consecrate yourself and be like, okay, now that we've taken care of my business, how can I serve God's will? How can I walk this out and help other people? Wow. How can I let the nutrients of the Holy Spirit, so to speak, flow through me and produce fruit in somebody else that stops them from committing suicide, that that builds somebody up at my job, or that does those things, or you can stop and be that good Samaritan. It's because you've already cast your cares. You've taken care of that.
Right.
Crazy that you talk about fruit. It really is crazy that you talk about fruit, because if you really think about it, if I plant a mango tree, and the mango tree starts to blossom and the mango starts to start to produce on the tree, the mango tree doesn't need the mango that it produces. Mm-hmm. The mango's not going to eat itself. It's not. Right. The mango is made for all the people to come in and harvest it. Mm. And so whatever fruit that you bear is not really for you at all. It's for me to come to you, David. It's for me to come to you, Scott. It's for me to come to you, Chris and Darius, to come to harvest some of the fruits that you have, so that I can put some nutrients in my body. Mm. So we owe it to others that our fruits can serve them in that regard. Wow. So I love that you talked about fruit, David. Wow. That was very profound.
And then an idea that I just got from that, it's like when you think about what is the goal of a tree, like, it produces fruit, but the fruit isn't the goal. The fruit is so that its influence spreads, so that it can grow more, so that it can reach more, because it's going to drop that seed and the fruit around it's going to decompose, and that seed's going to go into the ground, and hopefully it germinates. Right. And if it germinates, like, that's success. That's what the tree, that's the goal of the tree. That's what that's what it does.
Right.
That's some heat.
Wow.
I believe, when you're a servant, it becomes a lifestyle. Everything becomes a lifestyle, and you don't have to second guess, or, you wake up in the morning and you do cast your cares on the Lord, but it becomes a lifestyle for you, and you don't have to second guess it. It's just natural. You don't have to think about it. God would just flow through you.
Wow. That's basically what I remember. I read this article like I don't know what specific year it was, but in Cambodia, there was such a starvation. There's so much starvation in that country, to a point where they started eating the seeds of like the specific, like the most predominant crop that they grew in that country. They started eating those seeds because they were so hungry that they didn't have any food. But what they forgot to do was they ate the seeds of fruits that they could have had in the future. Like, talk about fruits. And so, like, we have to understand that sometimes it's not necessary. We don't want to eat the seeds, or we don't want to necessarily hinder the seed that needs to be planted in ourselves for fruits to bear, for others to have, or for others for others to benefit from it. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be very careful about the things that we allow to be planted in our spirits and our soul. We have to be very careful to the people that we hang around with, because sometimes they starve the seed that we have, or they will take that seed away from us and stop it from growing for others to come feed off on it. It's so profound that, like, the fact that you said fruit can ooze this conversation out, and I think it's just awesome.
No, literally, last night I was just driving, and I was telling myself, feed your spirit man. The flesh man, you want to eat, or you want to go to the movies, or you want to do all these different activities, but you need to make sure you're right. You need to make sure you're feeding your spirit man and building that up, and not negating that, not leaving that aside, not putting that aside, because there is going to come a time where you're going to need to pour into others, and you're going to need room for that.
Yeah.
And if you haven't grown that fruit, you ain't got nothing to feed them.
You ain't got nothing to feed. You ain't got nothing to feed them. So, you know how, like, we men, I can't speak for all men, but sometimes, like, I'll get so irritated. If you don't feed your spirit, man, Like the least thing, the little thing will get you angry.
Oh yeah,
isn't that crazy,
oh,
David?
yeah. That's why. What is it called? The children of the world. It says calls them the children of wrath.
Yeah.
It's like, so if you're not feeding your spirit, if you're not feeding peace, if you're not feeding love, you're feeding wrath.
Yeah.
There's one or the other is going to come out.
It's crazy because as soon as you start feeding your spirit, man, what happens is you know those moments where you are getting angry or getting irritated, and all of a sudden you know when to pray for it. You know when to allow God to help you in that moment. Oh, God, I need you. And then there's this peace and then this calm that comes, that it soothes you. And like David said, like, lead me behind still waters.
Right.
God has the ability to lead us into stillness. But if you're not feeding your spirit, man, you're not in tune with that part of the Bible where you can reaffirm that promise of God leading us to the stillness. So I believe, I trust, I agree with you, Darius, that we need to feed our spirit, man. We really have to.
I feel like if you're not, you become like a sinking ship. And you'll have like a little hole at the bottom of the ship.
Wow.
And all this water's pouring out. And you're like, man, I'm going down. Why are we going down for it? Well, you're not feeding your spirit, man. You know, you're not patching up those areas and feeding yourself what you need to be fed.
Wow. I think that's something too, right? Because it's like you can't pour from an empty cup, you know, that old proverb. You can't pour from an empty cup. And then, hey, you better make sure you got a cup. That seems silly, but think about it. Like, you better make sure you got a cup. I was just again in Matthew, it says, you know, Jesus is like telling him, he's like, man, you can't put new wine in old bottles, right? He said, you better get that new bottle.
Right.
So you better make sure you got the cup and you're filling it up, you know? Wow. And that's, like you said, you got to feed that spirit, man. Because if you don't, those cares of the world are going to grow up. You're going to, 2 months are going to go by. And then you're going to look at yourself and be like, oh, where was I?
Right.
Like, what was I doing exactly?
And you just become desensitized. You don't know what's going on in the spirit. You don't know.
Yeah.
You can't even identify a demon in front of you. You know, darkness. Like, you're just walking into it like, oh yeah, God's with me. No, he's not.
Yeah.
No, he's not. That's not his voice. That's not him.
That is true. That is so true. I think we become so detached about things that we need to be attached to, and that's it right there. I've read somewhere that no one is exempt from the results of the decisions that we make, whether it's good or it's bad. You know, like David said, you're gonna look back 2 months from now or 3 months from now, and you're going to see the results of decisions that you make 3 months from now that you're going to be reaping there and then. Yeah. And you're going to have kind of like the charisma and the character to face them, because no one is exempt from that, whether it's good or bad. You got to be willing to face those results of the decisions that we made. So if you make a decision to feed your spirit, you're going to have results from that. If you make decisions not to feed your spirit, man, you're going to have results from that. Right. We got to be willing to face those decisions when they come, you know.
That reminds me of what my pastor says, if you don't feed yourself, if you're not growing, you're telling on yourself. You're not fasting. You're not praying. Wow. You're not reading your word. Yeah. You're telling on yourself. So don't tell me or tell anyone that you're not growing. That's your fault.
Yeah, it's your responsibility.
It's nobody else's fault for your lack of growth.
Right. Wow.
It's nobody else's responsibility but yours.
That's crazy. That's so true. That's so true. Because we need to take responsibility of things that we need to take. I mean, if you're behind on your bills, what do? Right. You find a job, you know, you go clock in, you know, make some hours, make money to pay the bill.
Right. I heard an idea recently, and it's really been ministering to me. And it's this idea that you are the same person today that you will be in 20 years. And so what does that mean? That means that if you are undisciplined, if you aren't taking care of what needs to be taken care of, if there's something like in your room that is an issue, that it's like, I should probably take care of that, and you don't do it. Like, that same issue is going to be there for the next 20 years. So when we look at our life, when I look at my life, and I see all the areas that I'm like, oh man, this problem seems so insurmountable, I don't think I'll be able to do it. It's like, well, that's going to be it for the next 20 years if I continue to think that way. And it's not going to be until I gain that mindset where it's like, no, I'm going to work towards this and I'm going to do that. That's when you start to change your future. Changing your today, that's when you start to change the future.
Wow.
Starts with your mindset.
Christian always brings like brought me right back to earth. I'm like, okay, Christian.
For real. He just comes out and whips out a parable. Like, whoa.
Take that. Right. Uppercut, low jab.
Man.
I got a good pastor.
Can't top that one.
Oh man. But I think the topic of a lifestyle of ministry is just so broad. We can definitely talk about this for a
On and on.
long time, like on and on.
Yeah,
You know,
for
but
sure.
it's kind of like we got to go where the Spirit leads us in that regard. I mean, if we have to continue this conversation, why not? You know,
Yeah,
It's
like
but
if you-
look for a part 2.
yeah,
Part 2, man.
Because this is it, man. Because this is legit, man.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this.
Yes, it's really good.
You know,
For
I
sure.
think I can say honestly that ministered to me is just like, man, if you set it in order, like at the beginning of the day, you cast your kids at the beginning of the day, it's like, then you can start walking out that lifestyle. It begins to
Facts.
kind of just set it up for you, you know? So,
Facts.
man, I hope this ministered to y'all as much as it ministered to me. You can find us on, wherever podcasts are found. Be sure to hook up with our Instagram. And if you have thoughts about this, if something spoke to you, or if you want to add to the conversation, do not hesitate. Leave some comments.
DM us,
Talk us
comment
about it.
us,
Yes.
whatever. We're open.
Yeah, this is us extending our fellowship to you. So
Yes.
we want to know what you have to say about it.
Hey, there's definitely going to be a part 2. There's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a part
No,
2
for
on this
sure.
one. Don't you think so, Darius?
I know.
Because I feel like I could go.
No, I really can go on and on. Like really, and I think we all can. We have a lot of experience in this area, so
yeah.
it's definitely exciting.
I don't want to end it.
It's like it feels that way, and I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
man.
I think there's going to be a part 2, possibly a part 3.
Yeah,
So it's going to be fun.